This is the Padua Podcast Network.
And I think God has created a sort of virtual extra stomach space in our, like a little room that can only be used for dessert, and it's always available. Running a Fever, episode 120, Tom Brady's TB12 Diet, Part 1. Welcome to Running a Fever. My name is Michael Davis. I love my life so much that I want to make it last as long as possible, and also I want to make it as good as possible as long as possible. I don't want to just add years to my life, but I want to add life to my years. If you feel the same way, then come on along. This podcast is about fitness, diet, and medicine, and we will get there together. It is a cold day. Cold and beautiful day, Lake Fayetteville, not a cloud in the sky, but there's snow on the ground. Fashion report, I am wearing an additional layer. So 4 layers of clothing, people. And I'm even wearing the old sweatpants I used to wear every time that were falling down because I lost so much weight. They're the same ones. I haven't gotten any smaller ones. I can still wear them around the house most of the time because I don't have to worry about them falling off there. They usually don't, but I was able to wear them today, and because I'm tucking, I've got, 2 layers underneath, and I'm tucking in 4 layers, or 3 layers, something like that. Anyway, they're able to stay up, and it actually doesn't feel as cold as last time because there's no wind, and hopefully, knock on a tree coming up here, it's going to stay that way, and we'll be relatively comfortable throughout the whole thing, because it was painfully cold for the whole walk last time I came out here a few days ago. So I'll get right into it, because this is a lot of information I have to get out here today. I recently purchased a book called The TB12 Method by Tom Brady. I'm just going to give a rundown on Tom Brady for people who may be in Sweden and not real fans of American football. If you are in any way familiar with American football, you know who Tom Brady is. This weekend, this weekend, as this podcast is going to be coming out on Friday, 1st of February. This coming weekend is the Super Bowl. Okay, the Super Bowl is the championship of American-style football in the National Football League, which is the most prominent, though not the only, football league of American-style football. It's one of the most watched programs on television every single year. Tom Brady is a man who many consider to be the greatest quarterback of all time. He is 41 years old, and he is going to be the oldest quarterback to ever play in a Super Bowl, and he's going to be playing in his 9th Super Bowl, so he's already setting, just by starting a game, he's setting several new records. He's in his 19th season with his team, the New England Patriots, and his record in the postseason is unmatched in the history of football. He holds 13 Super Bowl records as of today, this being his 9th appearance, the most of any NFL player in history. He holds 20 postseason records and 9 regular season records, and he's still going strong. I mean, obviously, he made it to the Super Bowl this year. He's not finished as a player. Now, when a man is this successful, everyone wants to know his secret. Obviously, there's no one thing that anyone can do to be that successful, as successful as Tom Brady. But he's been very generous and has revealed his diet, which is, he calls TB12. TB12 being the number he wears as a player, in a book called the TB12 Method, which I have started reading. And it's more than just a diet book. It covers exercise, hydration, nutrition, training, and recovery, and even mental fitness. And we're going to get into a lot of this in the coming weeks. This is going to be a several-part series, at least 3, probably 4 right now, and probably more in the future as I get through the material. But today, we're just going to cover the diet part. So, the diet part is not really, it's not extremely radical, and some of the things that I'm going to say, you'll say, well, everybody says eat more vegetables, so forth. But especially for a football player, it's kind of unusual. You know, we think of football players just eating massive amounts of protein. You know, sitting eating steak and all kinds of things to build big muscles and that sort of thing. And that is true for a lot of football players, but Tom Brady, who again is playing at the highest level at the age of 41, almost unheard of. Very, very few NFL players. I think the average career is no more than, a few years, definitely. And even the best players, usually will not play for more than 10 or 15 years. So here are the basics, and I'll just run through them. Eat real, organic, local food. And this is local. Why does it matter? Well, local food's fresh. Tom says that even the fruits and vegetables that you see in the store have sometimes traveled hundreds and hundreds of miles, maybe been frozen and thawed several times. So they lose some of that nutritional value in that process. Eat mostly vegetables. Eat seasonally. We need more meat and fat in the winter and more greens and fruit in the summertime. And this is kind of intuitive, I mean, there are certain foods that you think of as warm and certain as you think, it's really hot. Usually don't want to eat a really heavy meal. And that's another reason to eat locally and seasonally. I mean, those are the foods that are naturally available during the winter are root vegetables and things like meat, obviously, because the things live year-round. Consume essential fatty acids. We all need some fat, right? Talked about this. Fat is an important part. You can't just eliminate it. Fat is important for insulation, and I'm not talking about, of course, I guess if you are living in a very cold climate, it might be that you need a layer of fat around you, but definitely insulating organs from harm, which is why bodybuilders who will get down to less than 5% body fat during a competition never stay that way, because it's physically damaging, very damaging to be at a low level of fat, that low. So they also carry oxygen, stabilize our body temperature, and absorb. There are certain nutrients that can only be absorbed in fat. So that's important to have enough fat to absorb those nutrients. Kind of didn't expect as many people out, but it's the usual. I mean, I saw someone running by before I even got out of the car. It's the usual dedicated people, and I don't think it will get any less than this until it's unsafe to travel, to walk around. I've seen some ice on the trail today. It is 24 degrees, but not enough to be dangerous. I can metaphorically tiptoe around it. How y'all doing? So consume essential fatty acids, and those are the good fats. Obviously, we try to be more, definitely not trans fat or those hydrogenated stuff and whatnot. Eat a variety of foods, because different foods have different nutrients. And what I've been trying to do is, for example, greens. When I go to the grocery store, sometimes I'll get kale, sometimes I'll get spinach. For my salads, romaine lettuce or red lettuce or green lettuce, not iceberg lettuce. There's not much nutritional value to that, but get different types of even the same vegetables, different types of apples, so forth. Do not eat refined carbohydrates. You're avoiding spikes in your blood sugar, and if you eat white bread or refined sugar, that's going to cause an easy spike because it comes into the body as energy so easily. So you're avoiding spikes and you avoid unwanted stress. Tom says, in this regard, I try to avoid eating anything that comes in a box or a bag. Now that's a challenge right there. Most of us have to shop at a grocery store, and but there are always local sources for foods that we can get nearby. Now, maybe if you live in the desert, that's not the case, but you should try as much as possible to get those, what he calls real foods, not processed, manufactured foods with chemicals. Avoid trans fats and saturated fats. The dangers of these are well known, and but also be careful that again, government regulations are not something you can really depend on, right? In order for something to say that it's zero trans fat, you can still actually have trans fat in the product. It's just a certain level that you can't have. Limit dairy. Now, this is something that I've had questions about, but in our interview with Anastasia, she was very against dairy, and I was skeptical of that. I thought you had to have a little more balance, and you could have that in your diet. And but the only thing, I have quite a bit of yogurt, and I also have cheese in my diet. But even Tom Brady does eat yogurt, but he limits the amount of dairy because that increases inflammation in the digestive tract. And what we're going to find later on is the main concept of the TB12 diet is avoiding inflammation, diet and other things. Howdy.
Hi.
He's an athlete and so is focused on athletic performance, but he believes that everyone should be at their peak performance for whatever they have to do in life. So the inflammation can be caused by a number of things. That's why he limits dairy, doesn't avoid it completely. Limit salt, because salt reduces our ability to eliminate toxins from our muscles and other tissues. So that's a good reason to limit your sodium intake. Howdy. And this is one that he says is only really for athletes or people who want to really take that extra step in reducing inflammation and keeping their body available for that peak performance, and that is limiting nightshades. Nightshades are a group of plants with generally have dark appearance, as the name implies. It includes mushrooms, eggplants, potatoes, strawberries, bell peppers, etc. Which is a new one on me, because I always thought, and this is true, that these foods are nutrient dense. But they also, according to Tom, also do cause some level of inflammation that is unacceptable for him as a professional athlete working at the top level. So maybe okay for everyday people, but if you just want to go that extra step in eliminating inflammation, then you can avoid these foods. And, you know, I don't eat a lot of eggplant. I do have mushrooms occasionally. Potatoes also, just one of those occasional things in my diet. Strawberries I really like. You know, bell peppers, I guess, are okay too. But anyway, this is not a big deal for most people, again, but causes enough inflation that Tom avoids them. Number 12. These are just the basics, but it's a long list. Like I said, there's a lot of information here. The book is very dense with information. Limit caffeine. No more than 2 cups of coffee. Now, that's not really harmful to you, and he agrees with that. And we've talked about how people in the blue zones often do have coffee. So it's not as terribly harmful as, you know, the public media and consciousness is all tries to be very one way, you know. And the truth is we need balance in our lives and almost everything. So they will say, oh, this is bad for you or this is good for you. You very seldom see a very popular idea come through that isn't that black and white. But reality, as we know, is quite different. So caffeine is okay in moderation, but it can cause a wide range of problems, including edginess and stress. And so that's something that you want to be moderate in your consumption of. He also limits alcohol, and this is another thing, just like coffee, that has proven to be okay in moderation. If you have a glass of wine every day, it can be very helpful to you, actually. But you should definitely limit it, and certainly if you're an alcoholic, you should avoid alcohol. If there's any problem that is caused by alcohol in your life or your health, you should. But it also contains lots of sugar and creates inflammation in the body, which is the whole point of diet. So in addition to those basic ideas, which are, you know, permeate through the whole diet plan, there are a few sort of tips and tricks that he has to keep himself healthy. You know, one of those things is, you know, there are always situations in which you can't. There's just no way to eat healthy. You know, you're in a place and it's a barbecue. They're only serving burgers and dogs, right? You know, you go to a pizza party. I like this T-shirt that, you know, the Pizza Hut employees say, you know, nobody throws a sandwich party. So, you know, he says, you know, just kind of limit your intake and go ahead and partake of whatever it is, but just limit your intake and try to eat the healthy things that are available first. Leave the table 75% full, Tom Brady says. Where have we heard this before? It's a whole, and I can't remember the Japanese or the Okinawan term for this, but in that part of Okinawa where people live to be 100 more often than other places in the world, that's one of the concepts. It's almost a religious thing that you leave the table, and they said 80% full or so, but 75 is close enough. And that allows you to effectively digest the food that you have eaten, and also helps prevent you from overeating. Trick number 2, eat healthy foods first. Don't eat so much lobster that you don't have room for your broccoli, right? If you do just kind of dig into that 12-ounce steak or whatever, by the end of that, you may not have room for all your vegetables. Although, I have found this in my life, you're never too full for dessert. And I think God has created a sort of virtual extra stomach space in our, you know, like a little room that can only be used for dessert, and it's always available. Yeah. So that's always a challenge, but eat your broccoli and your salad before you dig into that cheeseburger or some of the other foods that will talk about that you should avoid. He says, and this is something a little controversial, don't eat 3 hours before bed. Your body needs time to metabolize the food you have eaten that day. And this is almost a religious argument in the community, which is, if you listen to people like Oprah and her diet plan years ago, it may have changed, but don't eat anything after 6 p.m. And that allows your body to continue to burn the energy throughout the night because your metabolism is going to slow down. And bodybuilders who, say have that slow burning protein right before bed so you can continue building muscle throughout the night. But my dietitian told me that the liver regulates this and you always have plenty of energy available throughout the night, even if you don't have that before bedtime meal. So jury's out, but obviously Tom's argument carries a lot of weight, figuratively speaking. So there you have it. Eat more nutrient-dense meals so you don't get hungry. Eat fruit and other healthy snacks. He will eat bananas and that sort of fruit throughout the day. Of course, he's an athlete, and of course, he is burning a lot more calories than the average person does. So you still have to be conscious of the calories, which, fruit is good for you. I know Anastasia said you could eat as much fruit as you want, but it contains energy, and depending on the fruit, a lot of energy. Raisins are 120 calories in a quarter cup. A banana is 95 calories. An apple is 95 calories. Actually, a banana is more like 150 calories, something like that, 130. Or something over 100. And so, be aware of that. But it's the nutrients that, according to Tom, it's the, eating nutritious food that keeps you from being hungry on a natural level, in terms of how our body's supposed to work. But of course, if you've trained your body to eat unhealthy foods, like for some reason, I always have a craving for something sweet after a meal. I've been trained to have that dessert craving. And lately it's just been either some natural peanut butter or raisins, craisins, something along those lines, which although it does give me additional calories, at least I'm getting something unrefined and whole in what Tom would call a real food. So those are some tricks that you can use. Now, the primary goal of this diet is reducing or preventing inflammation, and this is caused by acidifying foods and reduced by alkalizing foods. Now, this is a concept that is not talked about very common. Like I said, this is not just some guy writing, or having somebody else write a diet and exercise plan to capitalize on his fame, but this is a guy who's really serious about his health and is sharing that information. Certainly making money in the process, but it is genuine and different, and he even goes and has some not very complimentary things to say about the food industry. So acids are needed. It's not like he's trying to eliminate all acids. In fact, before I came out here, in addition to protein shake, and I actually had a big breakfast this morning too, so I got plenty of energy and protein, but I also just kind of out of habit had some block chain amino acids, and those are the building blocks of protein. So if I didn't have enough direct protein from my diet and supplements, then my body would still have the building blocks and be able to build it. And this is why amino acids are, touted as something important in the bodybuilding world. But I'm not sure they're very extremely important as a supplement unless you don't have enough protein before your workout. Good morning. There is so much information. I've got 4 pages of notes here, and I haven't even read the entire book. But this, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I think you'll find more useful information, or certainly at least interesting and thought-provoking information, as I continue to cover the physical training plan of all areas of your health that is used and recommended and taught by Tom Brady as we go through these. And until then, keep the fever if you've got it, get it if you don't, and we'll talk to you next time on Running a Fever.
This is the Padua Podcast Network. PaduaPodcastNetwork.com.